What is going on, guys? Brad Messersmith here from the Fantasy Golf Degenerates, bringing you an expert model breakdown for the RBC Heritage. We're at South Carolina, Hilton Head, South Carolina at Harbortown Golf Links. Quick note on the finishing score. You can see when you look up at the top, the kind of course history summary. There's been years where even before 2010, the finishers were at 20 under. The winners were at 20 under. Last year, obviously, Brennan Grace won at 9 under. So there are some swings in scoring based on weather conditions. Looks like as of right now, it's Tuesday, and it's looking like the conditions are going to be fairly clear, maybe a little bit of wind. So we might see some pretty good scoring conditions. We'll get into kind of how I adjusted my model as a result of that in just a second. But before we get there, take a look. I've got 75% stats, 15% recent form, and 10% course history. There's one guy in particular we'll get to in Luke Donald who has phenomenal course history who I'm really not interested in this week, and I'll tell you why in just a moment. But I bumped down the weight of course history in my model to make sure that those guys weren't showing up as the favorites for this week. So, getting into the stats themselves, we're going to start out with strokes gained tee to green, gets a 4 weight. We've beaten a dead horse with strokes gained tee to green. Obviously, it's a stat you almost have to have in every single one of your models when you're building models. For me, this week, it aligns really well with the trends tool, so I'm going to put it in with a pretty heavy weighting. Strokes gained putting is one that does not always show up in models every week, but this week, a lot of the statistical analysis I'm doing is showing putting as a premium. So kind of an interesting thing when you're looking back at some of the leaders or some of the winners. But strokes gained putting is a stat that shows up somewhat prevalently for me, so I'm going to have that in the model. Birdie or better percentage. So this is the one that I kind of forced into the model just because of the fact that I think this year we're going to see some scoring conditions. Some good scoring conditions. In years past, it has not necessarily been a birdie fest like we talked about. Guys have sort of kind of grinded out the mid to low numbers and not necessarily a birdie maker's paradise. This year, I think that is going to change a little bit. Strokes differential field average comes in kind of a big way. This is one that I don't like to weight too heavily in my models because of the fact that it's going to put skill level at a premium, which is not necessarily what we're looking to do when we're making GPP models. We don't necessarily need the guys who are going to be the best players on tour at the end of the year. We need guys who are going to be able to play 4 good rounds and get to the top of the leaderboard, and that does not necessarily always align with each other from week to week. So I try not to force that one into the model too heavily, even when it does trend well. So it gets a 2 weighting. Driving distance actually gets a negative weighting. This is something I don't think I've covered in a video, but from time to time, there are courses that actually favor or hurt guys who hit the ball long. Most players, in most cases, are willing to club down and take 3-wood out of the bag instead of driver, but the guys who are constantly bombing the ball off the tee and don't have the ability or the mental wherewithal to club down are really going to be in trouble on a course like this. It's the Pete Dye design course. You're really going to have to be accurate. You're going to have to place the ball. You're going to have some strategy going around the course. Guys who are bombers, not all the time, but have a tendency not to have that in their game. So going to give a negative weight to driving distance, which I think is kind of a neat tool that you can use in the stats model that most people are not taking advantage of. So let's get into the guys I like for GPPs this week. There's quite a few of them, so I'm going to roll through them pretty quick. First and foremost, Russell Henley. He shows up as the 3rd overall golfer in my model. Recent form is obviously very, very good. He had a win not long ago, and statistically, he's one of the best matches in the field for what I'm looking for. 10,700, he gives you a little bit of a discount from Matt Kuchar, who is 11,500 this week, and I like them pretty well equally. So I'll take the discount with Henley and plug him into my lineups. Brennan Grace is a guy that I am going to completely fade. I think there will be a lot of people who kind of look at the fact that he is the past champion here, the defending champ, and just put him into their lineups without thinking anything else of it. But Brennan Grace is not a very strong golfer through 2017. I know in years past he's been very, very good. He's been highly ranked in the official world golf rankings. This year, when you look at his stats, woof. Definitely not somebody I'm going to be targeting, and I would advise you against it as well, especially with the price tag of $10,000. He's going to be, I think, fairly popular just because of his course history. So I'm going to stay off Brennan Grace, and that's my advice to you as well. The next two guys sort of fall into kind of the same category. Kevin Kisner and Terrell Hatton both are coming in with very good form. Obviously, Terrell Hatton missed the cut at the Masters, but I'm going to throw that one away. It was his first Masters appearance, first time at Augusta, so I'm not really going to read too much into that. Shy of that, he's got 2 top 10 finishes and the top 5 finish. Has been playing some of the best golf probably of his career. And the fact that he's number 1 in strokes gained putting doesn't hurt him. I really like the fact that he's going to be one of the best putters in the field, if not the best. So Terrell Hatton is somebody I'm going to be targeting pretty heavily, and Kevin Kisner for a lot of the same reasons. He's playing very well. Kevin Kisner has some decent course history, not great, but he's actually the number 1 ranked golfer in my model. Between course history, recent form, and stats, he shows up in a big way. So definitely going to be targeting quite a bit of Kevin Kisner. Adam Hadwin gets a yellow tag. I like him a little bit less. He's 2nd overall in my model, and he's been playing some serious golf this year. Obviously, it seems that he's made a turn in his game in the offseason. Has been competing in almost every event. Hasn't had too much trouble. Seems like he's a guy who, despite the fact that he's a bit longer off the tee, is going to be willing to club down because he's done well on some courses that require a bit of strategy. Jason Dufner, on the other hand, there's no question, has the game in his bag to compete here. Although he's not necessarily a Pete Dye specialist, he is a guy who has the proximity game, the approach game to really do well around a course like this. I think Jason Dufner is going to be fairly popular. Look out for some of the ownership projections to change this week. I think because of the weaker field, I think there's going to be a lot of people clustering on a couple of guys in terms of ownership. So expect those to change. Probably Wednesday afternoon is when they'll change, if not Wednesday kind of evening. So look out on my Twitter, and I will let you guys know when I adjust those. Luke Donald is one of the big ones that I really want to talk about. Again, he is a guy that I think is going to be very, very chalky. Obviously, if we scroll over and look at his course history, you're going to see a lot of green. 3 second-place finishes, 2 third-place finishes, and even before that, he was playing very, very well at Harbor Town. I think he has maybe another third-place finish and possibly even another second-place finish mixed in there. So really, really, really strong course history here, very elite course history. All of that being said, I used the lead-in forms tool. So if you have not used that, you can access it here under primary cheat sheet. There's a filter here that you can change to course history lead-in performance. If you do that, you can see all of the golfers' lead-in performances coming into this event in past years. So when you look at what he's done, a lot of his second place finishes and really good finishes have had really good course history or recent form coming into the event. So I am going to kind of adjust to the fact that this year that is not the case. Luke Donald is coming in with very, very poor recent form, and as such, since that was not the case in most of the years that he did really well, I am going to jump off of Luke Donald. I'm not going to play into the crowd favorite as I think he'll be, and I'm going to pick my spots elsewhere. One of the guys that I really like is an alternative to Luke Donald. I think he will also become fairly chalky. Sounds like there's been quite a bit of talk of him in the industry already throughout the beginning of the week, but Wesley Bryan is a guy, especially in a weak field, that I could very well see win a tournament like this. I think at this point we all know that Wesley Bryan is a very, very skilled up-and-coming golfer, won 3 times on the Web.com Tour last year. So I think that Wesley Bryan at some point is going to be a winner on tour. To me, this would be a place that makes sense for Wesley Bryan. I think the stats are there. I think that at 7,700, he's one of the more skilled golfers in the field this week. So definitely going to be taking some Wes Bryan. Anirban Lahiri is my sleeper of the week, which is a term I just made up. I don't think I've ever talked about a sleeper of the week, but it's happening right here, right now. Anirban Lahiri is a guy that I don't think will be very popular. In fact, that 6% number could be a little high even for him. I could see him coming in under 5%. Anirban Lahiri is a guy that when you really dig into him, probably makes more sense than you would think. Obviously, the putting is a bit scary. Birdie or better percentage is very, very good. One of the best in the field. If you're playing weekend slate golf and Anirban Lahiri makes the cut, I think he makes a ton of sense. Anirban Lahiri is somebody I'm hoping will make the cut, and I'm going to target him quite a bit on the weekend slate. Luke List is another guy that I really like. He actually shows up pretty highly in my model, in 9th overall. Really good stats, really good recent form. There's not a whole lot there that scares me. He is a guy that has been talked up quite a bit, so I would expect that 5.87% number to go quite a bit up when I make my adjustments. It could even be over 10% based on what I'm hearing early in the week. Again, it's early, so at this point I'm going to leave it where it's at, but look out for Luke List to potentially become the chalk this week. And last but not least, Cameron Smith at 6,900. I really don't like anybody under 7K. I especially don't like anybody under 6,500. But if I had to pick, Cameron Smith would probably be the guy I would pick. I will be sprinkling across several guys, but none that I really feel strongly about. So Cameron Smith, though, has had a 15th place finish here at this event, and statistically seems to kind of map out well for the course. So a golfer who's been playing better this year than he has in years past. So somebody I think that is worth a GPP flyer, in my opinion. So that's going to do it for us this week. I think if you guys have any other questions or concerns or want to know more, make sure to get onto thefantasyfanatics.com. You can download the exact model I'm going to be using to make my lineups this week. And you can check out all of the guys I like and don't like. You can see all the targets that I'm using for generating lineups, and you can get my ownership projections. Follow me on Twitter at BMSDFS, and do not forget to leave a like rating, to subscribe to the channel, to make sure that you get every single one of these expert breakdown videos. We've got 2 or 3 guys who do a fantastic job doing expert breakdowns on the channel. So make sure to subscribe, and you will never miss an expert breakdown video. We'll see you guys next time.